Oh, look at that car. My club, this gonna be my car.
Yeah, nigga, that's the rustiest car 15 years from now.
This is it, the iPhone 10. Probably going to be the most talked about phone this year. But is it worth the hype? Hi, I'm Michael Josh.
And you're watching GadgetMatch.
The iPhone 10 has a lot of great features, including this guy over here.
And over the last 2 weeks, the GadgetMatch team tested it out to see if we're really worth $1,000. This is their iPhone 10 review.
Here at GadgetMatch, we take all our reviews seriously, but I've got to admit, we spent some extra time on the iPhone 10, not because we're playing favorites, but because, unlike any other iPhone that we've used thus far, this one requires a steep learning curve. So over the last 2 weeks, a couple of us on the team used the phone as daily drivers so that we could answer your questions about the device. Things like, is Face ID fast and reliable? Is the new edge-to-edge display purely an aesthetic feature? And the question you folks ask the most, should I get the iPhone 10 or the iPhone 8? If you're asking the same questions and want some answers, hit that subscribe button, fasten your seatbelts, and let's dive in. First, a quick introduction. This is the iPhone 10. Apple's 10th anniversary iPhone. That's the original iPhone beside it. It's nice to look back at how far we've come over the last decade, because far we've come indeed. Size-wise, the iPhone 10 fits in the middle of Apple's also current 8 and 8 Plus models. It's still the same shape and has got the same rounded corners, but it's distinctly different in many ways. Its frame is made of stainless steel instead of aluminum, its display is edge-to-edge, there's no home button, and on its back, its dual cameras are arranged differently. In 2017, edge-to-edge displays have now become the trend, and we've come to expect them, given how much time we spend looking at our phones each day. But let's not confuse edge-to-edge with bezel-less, for the iPhone 10's display is unlike the frame-hugging one on the Samsung Note 8. And Huawei is correct to point out that their new Mate 10 has a higher screen-to-body ratio. But unlike all of this year's best phones that have both foreheads or chins or both, the iPhone 10 has neither, and is the closest to an all-display experience. Aesthetically, it makes a difference. When turned on, the phone calls to you asking to be picked up. The only sore spot is this notch over here. A necessary compromise to make way for some very important hardware, which we'll get into later. How do I feel about the notch? Honestly, I don't really mind, but if you do, trust me, it'll grow on you. When using the phone vertically, whether you're playing a game like Super Mario Run or surfing the internet, the notch won't really bother you. It's when you're using the phone horizontally and in full screen that it can sometimes be distracting, both while playing games or watching videos. The YouTube app will let you pinch to zoom to fit the entire screen. Zooming in, however, crops the frame a bit. Netflix is also optimized, and while watching Stranger Things, for example, you just double tap on the screen to fill the entire display. But many apps are not yet optimized for the new display the way Twitter and Facebook are, like many Google apps, for example. Using an app that's not yet optimized makes it look like your phone has a large forehead and chin, just like on the new Pixel 2. Some other notch-related oddities include carrier info and battery percentage do not show up unless you summon the control center. Not having battery percentage at my immediate disposal can be a bit of an annoyance, really. Our feelings about the notch aside, the display on the iPhone 10 is the best we've seen on an iPhone to date. It's got an OLED panel, whereas in the past it's been IPS LCD. The result is a brighter, more vibrant screen with richer colors and deeper blacks. Interestingly, Samsung makes these OLED displays for Apple, but Apple says they've custom designed them themselves. Some of you folks have asked about burn-in. Apple says it has optimized to avoid that problem from happening. They've even published this guide on how to avoid it, but only time will tell. Now back to the notch. Hidden underneath it is Apple's True Depth camera, Apple's new security system that replaces its Touch ID fingerprint sensor. The feature is called Face ID.
You just lift your phone and swipe up, and it unlocks almost instantly.
Let me clarify a few things. This isn't facial recognition as we've seen on other Android devices. It also isn't iris scanning that's available on the Galaxy S8 or Note 8.
An IR camera blasts your face with light. It's invisible to the naked eye, but not to our cameras. Notice that blinking light over there. As your face is lit up, a dot projector then projects thousands of dots over your face, used to measure every curve and every feature.
It's pretty accurate and almost impossible to spoof unless you've got a twin.
And to see how much else we can get away with, we went shopping. Sunglasses, hat, beanies, scarves, all of them at once. We tried different hairstyles, outdoors in the sun, and even in complete darkness.
But how reliable is it? How fast is it? And can it replace Touch ID?
Believe you me, I spent my first 48 hours with the phone just locking and unlocking over and over again. When I wasn't paying full attention, sometimes it didn't feel as fast as I wanted, but when I forgot about it, I found that it just worked.
Thing is, you have to swipe up to unlock. I think that's one unnecessary step, one friction point that could be done away with.
There are many ways to unlock. Lift your phone and swipe, tap once and swipe, or press the side button and swipe. While fast, it's not as snappy as Touch ID. This is how it's supposed to look in the most ideal of situations, but most of the time, we see the Face ID unlock animation, and subconsciously, that makes it feel slow.
Can we live with it? Yes, in fact, after using it for about a week, we found ourselves swiping up most of the time, even when we were not using our iPhone X. But if you're an iPhone user, be prepared to kind of reach for that home button, even if it's not there, for probably, give or take, a week.
Face ID comes with some cool benefits. If you have notifications, unless the phone detects your face, it won't reveal them. And when you do take a look at your notifications, you can simply tap on them to launch the respective app. Or if you shower with your phones like I do, you can unlock your phone when your fingers are wet. Because yes, the iPhone X is certified water and dust resistant. One of the features we couldn't wait to try was Animojis. The same true-depth camera can detect up to 50 facial muscle movements to animate 12 different emojis. We've had tons of fun recording Animojis, maybe even a bit too much. And unless you've been living under a rock, I'm sure you're well aware that Animoji karaoke is quickly becoming a thing. One last bit about the true-depth camera system before we call it a day. Because it can measure depth, the iPhone X doesn't need two front cameras to give your selfies that nice blur effect. For the first time on an iPhone, you get portrait mode and portrait lighting effects using the front camera. The results look great, but we found that the Pixel 2, with its artificial intelligence abilities, to be the better device at cutting out subjects from the background. And when it comes to looking great in selfies, for me, the Huawei Mate 10 Pro takes the cake. In our iPhone 8 Plus review, we praise the phone for its excellent picture quality. On paper, the iPhone X is supposed to be slightly better, with a faster zoom lens and optical image stabilization on both its main cameras. Here are some sample shots we took around Singapore. We also compared the iPhone X to other highly rated smartphone cameras. Here is how each of these phones managed side by side. Apple has always been a stickler for consistency of experience. In fact, if you're an app developer, you probably have heard about its human interface guidelines, which specifies things like text size, colors, where elements go on an app.
Ironically, the user experience on the iPhone X is not consistent with what we're used to. Remember that steep learning curve we talked about earlier? Here is where it comes into play. Because the iPhone X does not have a home button, Apple has had to change the way you do things.
For example, when you swipe up, you're supposed to bring up Control Center. On the iPhone X, it's a swipe down from the top right side of the screen. If you're in an app and want to go home, you used to be able to press the home button. On the iPhone X, it's a swipe up from the bottom of the screen. This too is no longer the power button. It's called the side button. You press and hold to summon Siri. Press along with the volume up button to take a screenshot, or press and hold with either volume buttons to turn off the phone.
None of these changes are extremely difficult to adjust to, but they require an adjustment nonetheless.
Apple says the iPhone X should last up to 2 hours longer than the iPhone 7. In our tests, we did not experience an improvement. With heavy use, the phone lasted us about 6 hours with about 4 hours screen on time. The iPhone 8, 8 Plus, and 10 all support fast charging. With the optional fast charger, you can go from 0 to 50% in 30 minutes. But you have to pay an extra $75 for a 29-watt charger and a USB-C to Lightning cable.
For a $1,000 phone, you'd think it would be included. And if you ask me, it's really disappointing. After all the top-of-the-line Android smartphones ship with fast chargers.
Using the bundled charger, charging times are much slower. The iPhone X also supports wireless charging. Apple doesn't sell its own wireless chargers at the moment, but using a Qi charger from Nilkin takes over 4 hours for a full top-up. Perfect if you plop it down by your bedside before hitting the sack.
So, is the iPhone X your gadget match? Some thoughts before we wrap up. I actually miss the size of my iPhone 7 Plus. Maybe one day Apple can offer a Plus model option for those of us who like bigger phones. And now more than ever, please folks, get a case. It will cost you more than $500 to replace either of the iPhone X's glass panels. Prevention is better than cure. There are plenty of cases to choose from, and nope, this isn't sponsored. Lastly, we didn't cover it in this video as much as we did in our iPhone 8 review, but the same A11 Bionic chip powers the iPhone X, and its promise of artificial intelligence can, for now, only be seen in glimpses, like how well Face ID works. In time, I expect AI to make phones like the iPhone even better. There may be some growing pains now, things taken away, changes made, and a necessary readjustment of old habits. But whether or not this phone is the future as Apple claims, at the very least, it is a preview of what's to come. And that future is exciting. Sure, this is the best iPhone ever made. It also is the most expensive. So, is it worth it? $1,000 is a lot to pay, and I've gotta admit, I'm kinda scared if this is the direction the whole industry is taking. I wish for a world where great technology isn't just for the wealthy. Having said that, if you're an Apple fan, spending this much on an iPhone X is justified. It's a great phone, it's worth it, and you will not regret it.
In fact, it more than deserves the GadgetMatch seal of approval.
I have a feeling that price was never an issue for Apple fans, so please don't go bashing them in the comments section. It's their money, they're free to do what they want with it.
If you're averse to change and don't like rocking the boat but are due for an upgrade, meaning if you use an iPhone 6s or older, then go for the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. They are great phones also, they just don't look as new.
And if you're looking to make that switch from Android, I wouldn't jump ship. There are plenty of amazing options out there in the Android space, probably more than ever before. And that was our iPhone X review. We've got a lot more iPhone X videos coming up, including some pretty exciting head-to-head battles. So to make sure you don't miss any of that, you know the drill, folks.
Check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Like our Facebook page.
Follow GadgetMatch on social media.
And make GadgetMatch.com your daily habit.
From here in Singapore, I'm Michael Josh. Thanks for dropping by.
Dang. Animojis.